Hello and welcome to another episode of our monthly Zoom Lives. Genuine Men's Zoom Lives started during the COVID period, and the Genuine Men's movement officially started last year with the setup of a Genuine Men's Chat show earlier this year, podcast, workshops, and our Zoom Lives. And each express the often unheard honest views of men from various backgrounds, cultures, religions, and life experiences. It's also a rare opportunity for men to have a platform to express their views, their thoughts, their perspectives, and obstacles in life with other men on topics that impact men, their families, their communities, and societies as a whole. It's an unadulterated and an unfiltered look at what life is like from a man's perspective. Hi, I'm Reham. I'm the host and the Genuine Men's coach. This is our 20th episode of the Genuine Men's Chat Zoom Lives, and today's topic is examining modern masculinity. I'm so eager to welcome our guest speaker today, John Foley. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you. Before we get started, before I get too excited and start getting into the questions and the topics, why don't I start with a little bit more information around your background. Let's go there. Let's talk about your background. So
Perfect.
Let me officially introduce you. John was in the US military for 18 years, during which he's done multiple tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He describes himself as a guy with some life experience that wants to share some of his failures so that you fail better. He created Men's Methodology to examine modern masculinity because he feels that rules in the landscape or battlefield, if you will, are different for men and women. John promotes open and honest dialogues to normalize attitudes of weakness and vulnerability for the guys. He also encourages the female perspective from his female followers, since it's critically important to have a holistic discourse about masculinity with both. Welcome, John.
Thank
Super
you.
excited to
Thank
have
you. Thank you.
So let's start wherever you're comfortable. I'm going to leave it with you. Where would you like to start with this amazing topic of examining modern masculinity? So I guess maybe we can kind of delve into at some point, what does masculinity look like before it became modern, and what is modern
Well,
masculinity?
it's interesting you say it that way. Why don't we just start with the intro?
Sure.
I do think the roles or the expectations for men and women are different, and I think it starts at a very, very young age. Uh, Women or young girls are pushed to share their feelings. They're pushed to support one another, from the day they pop into this world. Whereas guys, it's about sports, it's about competition, it's about like physical strength, it's about world domination, it's about winning, which are all competitive. Those are all good things, but what happens if you don't win? And so then if you don't win, or so maybe you've had a bunch of success and then all of a sudden you stop winning, and then everyone who's surrounded you has only been with you because you've been winning. You start losing, they go away, and then you're alone on an island. And I think that's kind of what happened with me. Yes, I was in the military, or I still am in the military. I've done a couple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what happened was, for kind of they call it the documented event or whatever, was the abrupt passing of my older brother, right? He was captured and killed by ISIS, and it was done in such a public way, that it was overwhelming. Now, I don't know if it was a combination of just being in the military, Iraq, Afghanistan, and then my brother Jim's death happened, and let's call it, I caught the PTSD and my psychosis broke. Um, but for whatever it was or whatever happened, it was just emotionally overwhelming. And personally, kind of like what you said off camera earlier, I didn't have the tools. I wasn't equipped with the tools to deal with it at all. And that's truly what started me down this mission, if I will, to serve men, to have this conversation. Um, I guess the difference between modern and I guess modern or old masculinity, to me, old masculinity is like this stoic guy. He's on top of the hill, his chest is up and whatever. He's, ready to take on the world alone. Well, the fact of the matter is, no one operates in a vacuum. You don't operate without women. You don't operate without other men. So, I mean, that's just an unrealistic portrayal of what masculinity is. To me, masculinity is being trusting. Masculinity is being open. Masculinity is willing to help someone else when they're down. It's all those things. Um, there is vulnerability in that. There is weakness because when you're trusting someone, like, well, if I'm going to trust him or her with this job or this, this knowledge, you're hoping that it's not going to just, fly back and hit you in the face. And as life happens, it does happen that way sometimes. And you learn who to trust and whatever. You create your circle of trusted advisors. But that whole thing, it really speaks well, it briefs well. But that was a lot of trials and tribulations that I had to go through to learn all that, to sit here and speak to you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So if you don't mind, can we kind of dissect a bit of
Do it.
points that you've brought up, because each and every one of them has so much value and so much hidden wisdom behind it, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that many men struggle with mental health.
Mm.
Many men don't even acknowledge that they have struggles with mental health. What was it like for you to recognize that you were, dare I say, labeled with PTSD? I mean, that's huge in and of itself.
So, to be perfectly blunt, I only realized it, um, really openly realized it and like spoke it out loud to like friends and family and here on Zoom, uh, 2-3 months ago.
Okay.
My brother passed almost 6 years ago. During some of my episodes of PTSD, you know, very super close to the edge, super close to the edge of making a permanent decision for a temporary situation. And I think rock bottom teaches you a lot. The one thing it taught me is, yes, I'm having a hard time mentally, but I have a pretty blessed life. I have good family. I have two kiddos that largely were my why. They were, when I was like, ugh, everything's going wrong and like, just feeling the worst, Jack needs a dad, Rory needs a dad. I need to be there for them. And I think that's important to have your why, to know your why.
Absolutely. Um, and we're going to go to why. We're absolutely going to go to why. I want to be mindful of the fact that this is November, and November is
Yes.
mental health month. And
Mm.
I want to, it's super special to have you especially on, a fellow colleague, well respected, um, and having had your own journey with, you know, like you said, being tempted with the permanent solution for a temporary situation.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for men out there that are watching and the women that support them, when it comes to that super fine line
Mm.
of making a decision to commit to your why, to let that pull you back, to know that you are wanted and needed in your life and in other people's lives. And that permanent decision has such a big cost for so many other people.
It does, and at the time uh, you can't see it. You're super myopic, super uh, selfish in a way. I think at times, I think with reminding myself of what the why is, I'm like, it would be really selfish of me to remove Rory and Jack's dad, you know, um, or to remove John and Diane Foley, my parents, to lose another son. That'd be selfish. The other side of it is that, as you well know, uh, recovery and progress is very rarely in a straight line, and if it is, it's very brief.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that helped is celebrating the micro progressions, because that's exactly what they are. They're micro progressions, because usually it's like two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, one step back, maybe three steps backwards, and then a step forward. But it's nugging it out, and sometimes I know, at least for me, I am the worst on myself, and I think everyone is. I think everyone's hardest on themselves, and that self narrative, having a positive self narrative and giving yourself credit, allowing to celebrate, allowing to feel the success is almost like the slow turn of the flywheel. I
Beautifully
mean,
spoken. Yes.
you know,
Please continue. Yes.
no, I mean, that's really it. I mean, and once that flywheel, you can get it going and going and going. Then you can pull yourself out. For me, I was married. My marriage ultimately ended in divorce, and I couldn't pull myself out. I own that. I own that 100%. Um, and so now, because of those failures, that's why I try to say fail better, because these are all failures. They are in the past. You can't change the past, but you can sure leverage the past to learn and grow. That's what I'm trying to do.
So how can men struggling with their mental health right now leverage their past to start making those steps in addition to the celebrations, in addition to the positive narrative, or developing a healthier mindset, in addition to identifying what that flywheel looks like and start turning it? Is there anything else that you'd like to add regarding feeling better for men?
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, at least for me, a big part of it is pattern recognition, right?
Tell us more about
Um,
that. Let's break that down a bit.
okay, I mean, so with the whole with PTSD, feeling stressed, or having nightmares that people bad things are going to happen to me, or bad things are going to happen to my family, and then self-medicating, i.e. drinking alcohol, or just kind of like staying in my room, staying outside, staying inside, not going out. Okay, so self introspection is hard, right? I mean, and you have to take an honest look, and oh, by the way, friends and families are like, hey John, maybe you need to slow down, or hey John, let's go out, let's go out for a walk, let's go out. I know a couple buddies are just like, let's go out to the shooting range. Maybe that's normal for folks that haven't been in the military, but it's therapeutic for some veterans,
Yeah.
and let's just say no. no, no, no. And even with my wife at the time, John, let's take the kids to this or let's do that. No, no, and so you basically just curl on a ball and just, I don't know, like self-loathing. It's just suffering. It's just suffering. And so to, break that cycle, I'm not saying go out and, run a marathon, but maybe the first step is you get your cup of coffee and you step outside your front door and you let the sun hit your face. That to me is a win. That to me is something to be celebrated. And that's like one of those little micro progressions that most like normal people that are just doing this and doing that and rocking and rolling life are like, oh, that's not hard. Well, yes, it is.
For some people, it can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
For some people, it could be hard to just get out of bed,
Thank
especially
you.
when they know the weight that is on their shoulders, the responsibility that they have waiting for them. Getting out of bed itself is a struggle. So when you
Yes.
wake up and you commit to being self-reflective, when you commit to noticing the patterns, when you commit to failing better, to know today I might fail, I might get one foot out and not the other one, but I know that I tried and I'm going to try again. And I'm not going to give up on myself, because the minute we start giving up on ourselves, we believe the world has given up on us. And that's not the
100%.
case. But that's not the case.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It isn't. Yeah. And it's just like in anything in life, right? I also think in our culture, right? You look at like Elon Musk,
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
We recognize them and we celebrate them at the end of their journey. We don't see them in the dark holes working the 100 or plus weeks on their couch, not sleeping, you know.
Breaking up
You see,
of marriages, breakdown in their relationships,
yes, yes,
bankruptcy with some of them, not necessarily those, but like others. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. It's the
yes, yes.
depths of despair that people fall into that we don't hear about.
Yeah, all we see is the end result of being a billionaire and celebrating that, and we never celebrate. People are like, oh well, nothing ever good comes from suffering. I disagree. There's a ton of good stuff that come from suffering, persistency, consistency, and showing up and being present. There's a ton of growth, and men and women like those individuals that we just talked about are examples of it. But the problem is we always celebrate the end of the journey and not the beginning, because, oh, by the way, no one recognizes anyone at the beginning, because they're like, oh, this is just some schmo trying to build Amazon. I was one of them. I remember when Amazon was first starting just
Yeah.
selling books online. I'm like, that's gonna go nowhere. Does anyone even read anymore? With the whole digital media thing, and like, well, that John Foley was definitely wrong, obviously. But so
Yeah. So
uh,
I'll ask you one more question and then we'll move on.
please, yeah,
For many men, especially when they're in that mental state, and this is true for women too, but being that our audience is mostly men,
yeah,
in that mindset of I can't do this, I'm in the depths of despair, I'm in the pits, I'm whatever the term may be, how do you ask for help? How do you ask for support? Because sometimes that could come in different ways, and it doesn't have to be get me out of the pit. It could be, could you just wake me up in the morning to make sure that I'm breathing?
yeah,
When do you ask for help, and how do you ask for help for those men that are struggling with the ask?
yeah. I mean, uh, I can only talk for me.
Yes.
Um, but I would say in little ways, there are a number of times when, even to this day, right? So there are friends that I've known post my brother's death and pre my brother's death. And I find even some of my closer friends I know pre my brother's death, it's just kind of weird. It's like, you know, is he gonna cry on me if I ask him something? Like, or is he gonna like, I don't know, like just explode into tears, or he's gonna have a raging fit, or oh my gosh, he has the PTSD. Is he gonna be like some kind of weirdo? And so uh it's almost like a two-part question, right? So because again, we don't operate in a vacuum. And I hope and pray that all men at least have one person, male or female, to reach out to. And so one is, with the example of stepping outside, maybe just go ask to have some form of human connection, whether it's FaceTime, Skype, a text, and the other side is we have to work with the other half is I understand that everyone has a battlefield that no one knows about, but we have to engage. You know, Immediately after when the whole thing went down with my brother, I was in Belgium. They returned me to the States, and when I was in the States, it felt like everyone was having conversations around me.
Mm.
Like, there's that guy. There he is. Do you hear what happened to him? And that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even worse. So my thing is directly engage the person. Hey, are you having a bad day? Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
That's it. And if he, I guess in this case, or he or she will say, no, I'm good. Or no, I'm okay today. Or no, I'm not doing so hot, but I'll make it. Those are honest answers. And they're not like, and that's good.
Yeah.
Like to have that like honest and transparent conversation. It doesn't mean like there's gonna be like word vomit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for
Those
that.
are real.
And that's what it comes down to be honest, because the show, the program, the Zoom calls, the workshops, the podcasts, it's all called Genuine Men for a reason. It's about men finding the truth, the transparency, the honesty within them, and letting that come forth and being okay with it, despite what other people think, say, label, assume, expect. All the shoulds, musts, and have tos, and should nots, and must nots, and have nots disappear the minute that we are clear as men, women, human beings are clear about what's coming from our soul, what's coming from our hearts, because that is what's true. So it's
Yeah, no,
promoting that.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the other thing that men need to do better with, especially heterosexual married males, right? And I did this, right? They funnel, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. They funnel all the emotional support onto their spouse.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they picked a really great spouse, but like these women are not miracle workers, right? And so like um and again, this is just something I learned after, is that like largely the majority of my friends talk sports, talk the news, maybe talk some politics and have a couple beers, and that's about it. But now I'm like, okay, I need friends that can dive deeper.
Yeah.
And so that way you can satisfy all aspects of your personality. Like the poor women, they're not miracle workers. They can't satisfy that. And oh, by the way, the women aren't doing the same. It's not a bad thing, because women do a much better job of maintaining their friendships or external relationships. I don't know how you uh, categorize that, and that's something that men need to learn from.
Yeah. Esther Perel says it beautifully. In our relationships right now, we're demanding for our partners to be everything and
Mm,
then some. And
Mm,
it's not realistic. And of course, she goes into much more detail. That's the summary
yeah.
of it. But it's not realistic for us to demand that of our partners if they're not trained, if they're not skilled, if they're not able or capable or willing to be that for us. So to have a healthy support system is so essential to ensure that if one falters, you always have backups. So my question to you would be, how did you develop that support system around you?
Again, pure necessity. So for me, I got divorced. So I immediately lost about 65% of my friends. And then of those friends, of those guy friends, they were married and their wives or their family situation was such where, well, don't talk to him. I don't want you to catch that disease called divorce. And then so like I had one or two friends. I took a tour to Saudi Arabia, which is great. I was there for a year. Came back to here to St. Louis to be closest to my kids, so I could see them every other weekend. But here I am in a city, St. Louis, I've never been in. I know nobody. Definitely here for my kids. But again, my kids talk about all aspects. My kid, they're a huge aspect. They're a priority. They're the priority. That's the whole reason why I'm here. But you need friends and you need a social life. You need to be connected. And so I got really lucky. I before COVID, I hit this meetup. It's a guy by the name of Jason Pierce started essentially this men's group. Everyone says, "Ooh, men's group." Ooh. Like, what's wrong with you? Well, maybe. What was wrong with me is that I didn't have any friends. And so it was great. So I got involved with these guys, meet like once a week or kind of do different meetups. And in these groups, we would have this discussion of vulnerability, guilt, shame. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, John, Billy, Bob, you guys all have this? Wait, I'm not special? There's a community of brothers out there.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, maybe this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
So I got lucky and it's all through happenstance.
And sometimes that's how things happen, in our lives. One thing leads you to another, leads you to another, that opens a window, that opens a door. Um, I guess what's really essential is for us and for our viewers today, both yours and mine, um, to be able to see when a door opens and when a window opens. Because
Mm,
sometimes we have our blinders on and we could only see yet another reflection of what was, another person rejecting us, another person labeling us, another person saying, oh, it's that guy again. But in reality, it might not be that at all. But because when we're focused or hyper vigilant about one thing, for example, divorce, you were talking about divorce.
hmm
So when we're hyper vigilant about, being divorced, that's all we see and hear and filter. But when we start to remove the filter, um, it's not just about divorce, it's actually about parenthood. It's about companionship. It's about friendship. It's about shared journey. It's about the same struggles that other people experience, just different labels.
Sure.
And so it kind of dissolves the fear and insecurity that could come up for men oftentimes when they're creating these new social supportive networks. So really seeing things for what they are with fresh perspectives. So it's almost like beginner's mind. And I learned this from my son when he sees things from a fresh perspective. And I'm thinking, like, why do you, like, how do you see a flower as being a flower in that way? It's just a flower. And it reminds you, or a leaf, or an ant,
Yeah.
or a
hmm
cloud, it reminds you that there's so much more to life than just the labels and the filters. Um,
hmm
so moving on, we were talking about why, your why. So
mm
so we've gone through, the experience that you experience, the struggle within your mind, within your body, within your heart, and soul, dare I say, about your connection to yourself, to what happened, possibly even any feelings that may have been there residual from the experience, of your brother passing, and what role
Mhm.
you had to play with your family, or your the community, even, your mom, your dad, um, and then you funnel it to a social experiment, almost,
Mhm. Mhm.
in creating a connection with others in a way that's so raw and fresh. So take us to men's methodology, and then get us to your why. Or if the why comes first, then
No. I mean, I think it's like horse, cart, horse type thing.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the why, and kind of doing a brief overview of what we've talked about, the why, the the mental stress, distress, the mental distress, the dark holes, the successes, the failures in marriage, also say failures in parenting, not being there. There's a ton of guilt and shame that
Yeah.
I was separated from my kids, but it was something that I had to do for my mental well-being. Um, and then kind of the journey back to myself, the journey, you know, the original onus of why I had to do what I had to do is because I had to, I felt like I had to save myself so I can be a better person and a better father and more present.
Yeah.
That that essentially is my why. And that was a journey, a hard journey, a long journey. And I'm still on that road. And that message and that story just was like beating inside of me. I had thought about doing this like simple Instagram page for like 6 months, and I was scared. I was scared of talking about mental health and my own journey in front of my friends and family because I was going to be labeled, or I was going to fail. I was going to fail miserably, or I mean, there have been a couple of times where I've posted and people are like, "John, are you okay? John, are you how you feeling?" And that's good. I'm really glad that they're doing that, and that they're reaching out. But the story needs to be out there, um, and that's why, uh, based on having to or having a need to save myself, to be more present, to be more present to my kids, and be a better person, better man, that led to me to creating men's methodology to examine what is modern masculinity, to empower men to live better lives and to be of service to men and women. Us men, we don't operate in vacuum, just like this Zoom call,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a certain synergy that happens. And so that's what brought me to this point right now.
So what advice do you have for men that are wanting to create shifts in their lives, to pivot the experience, whatever that may be, that they've experienced, and develop or create something from that? What do you have to tell?
Yeah. It starts with a belief.
Yeah.
It starts with a belief. That belief leads to a decision, and that decision leads to an action. Now, again, that action could be stepping outside the house with your cup of coffee and the sun hitting your face. Um, but it starts with a belief. It starts with a core belief that you can do better, you can change, but you're going to have to do the work. And the work is necessary and worthwhile to live a better life.
Well said. Um, Tell us more about how the reaction was after that first post.
Oh, it was purely positive, but like, and I'm sure you, I'm sure kind of like your own, like, doing the YouTube or doing the Zoom or doing the social media stuff. You go through these cycles, or maybe it's not even cycles, but it's like benchmarks. Cause I remember, like, I'm talking about Life Boost Coffee, which, by the way, I still love, and I still helps the gut and whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
still a big fan of it. So it's not that I was trying to be an imposter. I still love that stuff. But I remember posting it and being like so vulnerable and like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? And then it was largely positive. Okay. So that was like one benchmark. And then I remember posting about, you know, so silly, posting about my failure as being a triathlete and how I trained for months and months. I wanted to go to Switzerland to fail, but then I failed, got back on the horse, and then was able to do the triathlon in Belgium. And that was
Congratulations. I
like,
didn't know that. Amazing.
thank you. And then like subsequent posts get more serious, deeper, and each time I had an anxiety and a fear, and the more you talk about it, the shame
Yeah.
dissipates,
Yeah.
the embarrassment dissipates, and what you find is I'm not trying, and neither are you, like, oh well, you should just talk to anyone and everyone. But once you remove the shame, the self-doubt, and the embarrassment, you unlock your potential. And it's unlimited. It's all in here. It's all in here. And it sounds crazy to say about all that with social media, but it's true and real. The fear is real, the anxiety is real, the potential for embarrassment is real and everlasting because it's
But
out there forever.
which is true, but so what?
No, 100%. Yes, yes, exactly 100%. But it's real, and you have to fight it, and you have to overcome it,
Yeah,
and just do it. You have to have that belief that goes through a decision and take action.
exactly.
Yes, 100%. Yes, no, I appreciate that qualifier.
No worries. I mean, I've been there myself. With every post, sometimes, I question, is this what I want to post, and why, and what are people going to say? And then when I don't get into my head about it, I'm okay. So a
Yeah.
really healthy mindset around that, which comes from belief, that sense of, I know why I'm doing this. Just like you were saying, this is about your why. I know why I'm doing this. You know why you're doing this. We know why we're serving men and supporting women that support them. We also know that if it doesn't resonate with people, there's another post. The next one
Yes.
might.
I mean, like, the most perfect example is like yesterday's post. I think I said something about recharging was like the worst I've ever had. Like, as far as like insights wise. But like if that happened like a month ago, I would have been
Yeah.
like, like, oh John, you're bad. You're not good enough. This isn't gonna work.
So let's talk about
But
that mental chatter. Let's go there.
yes, please.
Because the mental chatter sometimes never, shuts down. How do you manage that?
Wait. Um, well, I mean, one, you manage it by doing. Keep putting yourself out there. Keep showing up and being present. And then you kind of like you gain experience. You get these little nuggets. Oh, hey, this has happened before. And then, I knocked it out of the park the next time, or like, I did better the next time. And like it's again, it's like when you fail, you gain that perspective, that growth. And that's why it's important to fail. I have, my heart goes out to those who haven't failed, because at some point they will, and they're not going to know how to deal with it. But it's really a blessing, because through failure, through a bit of suffering, becomes growth and opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's when we get outside of our comfort zone, like that first post.
Yes.
and then the next post, and then the next post. Uh,
Yeah.
that really opens us up to the possibility of growth, like you're saying. So, I remember I was talking to a child that I was coaching, a boy, and he had
Okay.
failed his exams
Mm.
miserably, as in, like, he failed them with honor. He got like zeros and ones out of 100.
Mm.
And well, dishonor. In his mind it was honor, because he didn't want to put in the effort. He felt that if I put in the effort, I would be cheating myself out of the position that I don't have to study. Whatever
Mm.
that means in some child's mind, was important for him to believe that. So
Right.
when we look at failure, when we look at mistakes for this child, for example, at the age of 13, he really wanted to test his parents and test his teacher to see what their reaction was going to be, if they still loved him enough, if
Mm.
they still cared enough.
I even see that with my own son, that sometimes some of the negative behavior he does is to see, to get my attention or my
Yeah.
ex's attention. Yeah, I mean, and I think sometimes we all do that a little bit.
Yeah.
We're
Adults
all
and
a little,
children.
a
Yeah.
100%. I know I shouldn't be putting on this poor Jack, but I mean, yeah, I mean, we all have that hurt child, you
Yeah.
know, shows up in relationships. I'm sure,
Yeah.
well, it's shown up in my relationships. Let's put it that way.
And so being aware of it is essential, because then it becomes a tool. So one thing that I wanted to bring up that you just also brought up is, when it comes up as a trigger, we know that it's an area that we need to work on. It's not the other
Mm.
person that's triggering us. It's our past experiences that are triggering us, our past
Oh,
failures,
100%.
our past perception of our failures and of ourselves in those failures, that hinder us from moving forward and growing. So that's another way to also look at failures and mistakes. Those triggers that we experience that force us to feel like we have to suffocate that emotion, or those emotions that are coming up, or that memory.
Mm.
And what do we do about it? So if you have any advice on that, do share.
Oof.
I know that's a minefield
Um,
in its on its own.
no, I mean, I should bring my girlfriend on here. She'd have a lot to say about that. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have a lot of trouble with that. And because we all bring our own baggage into any and all relationship we have, whether it's romantic or otherwise. I think the biggest thing is, and then something I'm totally trying to work on is being able to repair the repair cycle. Because yes, the triggers happen. Yes, you're gonna have outbursts. Yes, you're gonna hopefully or say things that you don't mean, but hopefully they're not too bad. And coming back and apologizing, and an authentic apology.
Yeah.
So I really apologize for the way I acted. You don't deserve it. That type of thing. I'm sure we could do a Zoom on how to authentically apologize, and it'll
We
be like
might
a
just,
couple
yeah.
hours. But that is important, right? Because in any relationship, you have two imperfect humans trying to come together and have a perfect or at least ideal relationship. And I think the world of my girlfriend. I think she's a very special woman for dealing with me. I think I'm super blessed. And I know I'm not the easiest person to live with. And I think it was Gottman.
Yeah.
He's one of those, yeah, Gottman. He says the positive interactions to negative reactions should be 5-1, but he prefers 25-1. And so when
Yeah.
you have those negative ones, you really have to highlight them. Again, the whole failure thing, highlight them, talk about it, and try to repair and at least acknowledge your own faults, because that's really all you can do. I can only control my behavior. So
Beautifully spoken. Absolutely. Let me just clarify that Dr. Gottman and his wife, who he met while he was doing his work,
Yeah.
studied couples for 30 years,
Mm.
and what makes their relationship successful. For those of our viewers that haven't heard about him and his wife, and so that 25 positive reactions to one negative reaction is so essential, because what it does is, like you were saying, it kind of puts on a band-aid, but it also puts on the cream, like for the Neosporin before the band-aid, so that it heals. And it's not just putting on the band-aid so that nobody sees the wound. And
Yeah,
it's
I would give
powerful.
you a different. I'd give you a different analogy. It's
You
almost like it
do.
gives you a bit of padding, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly. And on
before
top
you.
of that one, yeah,
Yeah, on top of the
exactly.
band-aid.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So um, we've talked about you, your journey away from you before, and then your journey back to you, and men's methodology. What asks do you have of our audience and your audience right now? What would you like them to do with their lives in this blessed month of November?
I mean, I think, well, number one, I really don't have any asks. I guess I just put it out there is uh, kind of just look at what you're doing and look at where you want to go. It's so personal, right? I know where I want to go, and I appreciate you for having me on and helping me in that endeavor. Um, but where do you want to go, and what are the steps to get you there? And have that belief in yourself, and look at yourself to see how you can do better. We all can do better,
Yeah.
and that's it. Try, fail, learn, do better.
Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. I love it. Yes.
Absolutely. Perfect. So for the fathers out there, what can we do um, to guide them, to direct them when reconnecting with their children and raising their children, being that we're both parents and works in progress ourselves, to work with our children so that they can open those channels of communication about these topics.
Yeah. So my relationship with my kids when I got back from Saudi Arabia over a year ago was not the best. Um, so and I really don't have any like silver bullet for anyone to use to just fix the relationship. It's about time, consistency, and persistence. Be present, show up. I mean, I'm now on TikTok. I'm now on Snapchat. And I'll be on any app or whatever to connect with my 13-year-old daughter. I'll be on any app or whatever to connect with my 8, soon to be 9-year-old son. And I think that's a mentality that you have to have. So, but okay, that's what works for me. That might not work for another guy. But the persistence, consistency, and being present, that's the key. Whatever that means for them, us, is critical.
Excellent. Is there any specific advice that you'd give for your son and fathers that have sons? And then any specific advice you'd give for fathers that have daughters? And then the women that support them after that.
Yeah, I mean, these number one, time is limited. The time goes so fast, and I forget what the exact stat is, but really the bonding between father daughter, the bond between father son is like from like 4 to like 14 or something. And so that's the window you have. That's the window to make an impact. That's the window to bond. That's the window to create that connection that will last for a lifetime, positive, negative, or neutral.
Mm.
That's our window. So time is of the essence. Time is now. And I realized that as I've been apart from both those two. I think, I think we could have Zoom calls on our podcast on each of them, but the end of the day, they want to know that you're going to be there, you love them, and you're going to show up when they need you. And so, however you do that is important, is needed, and I want to make it clear to dads out there, you are just as important as the mothers. Mothers are great, but there's a specific role. That's why men and women were created. There's a specific role as mother and father that you hold and cannot be replaced. So please go fill that role, as I'm trying to do.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So, not to leave out the women that are supporting these amazing men
No. Yeah.
and these wonderful children, what advice do you have for them?
The same thing. Keep showing up. I'm like again, I go back to my poor girlfriend who's with me. I mean, there are good days and bad days. And I definitely way more good than bad. And I'm blessed to have her in my life. But I think it's a mentality that you have to work toward as us versus me. I feel like in today's society, everything's me, 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 me. And if your mindset is a us mindset and how we would do this together, or if I'm going to do this task or I'm going to accept this job, how does it affect us? And that's totally counterculture of putting us before me. And so
Yeah.
I think, and I think I definitely didn't answer your question, but
No, I think you did.
okay.
Because there's
Well,
something powerful when you talk about the us mentality. So let me draw it out a bit, and please jump in.
yeah.
So the us mentality is about, it's us against the world. It's us against
Mm,
everything external, circumstances that can impact us internally as co-parents or parallel parenting or whatever role parents may have. Um, to shelter their union first before you start taking in the children into that bubble. Because if that union is not healthy, the children get impacted. So that's part of
mhm.
the us mentality as well. And it's creating that sense of security, stability, like you said, showing up, staying consistent, being responsible. As difficult as those mature adult characteristics may be for many of us who would rather stay children in our behaviors sometimes, me included.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to elevate ourselves to that level. We owe it to ourselves, owe it to our partners, and owe it to our children and the society at large. Sorry, to uh, to elevate our connectivities with others, so that when we are in us, it's us rectifying the mess that's within the space between us, so that it doesn't infect other people. That's one way of
Yeah.
thinking. What are your thoughts?
No,
And
I
in
mean,
case if you have another one.
no, I'm nothing to add. I think that was very well said. Yeah. No, that was awesome. It's true. Yeah, it's true.
It's like the chili. You make the chili with different bits and pieces. Without the beans, it's not chili.
Yeah. No,
Without,
I mean,
yeah, without certain ingredients, it's not an us. It's a me. It's a you, and it's not a union. And kids learn, kids see, and then they start creating those core values and core beliefs that we talked about earlier from what they see in those critical times of 4 to 14 and even before that a bit. And that then defines their relationships with other partners, spouses or friends or families or family members, sorry, and it also illustrates for them how they should operate with themselves.
Yeah, and if anything I've learned from my son or daughter is they are mirrors in that
Yes.
they model your behavior, and you're like, oof, like I know she's acting just like me.
Yeah.
That is not good in this situation. And so, that is another reason, to do better, to try to work on my communication skills so that way I can communicate properly to my daughter or son and say, hey, it's okay for you as my daughter to give me feedback. Just because I'm the dad doesn't mean I'm like all knowing and all powerful. Um, there are going to be days where I'm just going to flat out overrule you as the parent because of whatever the reason is. But we need to have this back and forth conversation. And me and her actually had this specific conversation literally 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was not it was last Friday. It was a week ago. And as a result, our communication and just the general overall happiness of the relationship is getting better as a result. I mean, it's a
Amazing.
conversation. It's not a one and done. It's
Yeah.
a constant conversation.
Yeah.
But to know that even if you like the other day, she's like, "Dad, you're preaching at me." Oh, okay, Rory. All right, you know, okay, I got it. I'll back off. I got it. Message received. All of us parents do that. We all
Yeah.
preach.
But
So
opening that window, and dare I say, even door for our children to tell us, you know what, that wasn't right, dad or mom. That really, that isn't according to what we agreed to. The us factor now, this is the family factor.
mm,
We, us, the mom, the dad, the children, didn't agree to that value in our home. And
yeah,
to
and
give,
yeah.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, and that's exactly right. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like I just kind of get a little excited and passionate
I
about
know.
it, and having this like literally bilateral relationship with your daughter because you are setting up this young girl. I can't say she's a young girl; she's a teenager now, but this future
Young adult.
young woman,
Yeah. Yeah.
she needs to be able to speak up. I want her to be able to speak up. I want her to give her voice when necessary or when applicable. I don't want to shut her down.
What a gift that is for her, because then she knows how to stand up for herself. She knows how to stand up for her needs, her wants. She knows what her needs and wants are, and has practiced communicating them with you as her dad, and with, your girlfriend, for example, as a woman, and seeing how that works, and then with her brother, which is a completely different world, I'm sure, um, to to then give her that training ground at home. Just like you went into the military and you had training program, an academy probably to go to get the training necessary to be at the caliber that you were at. Our homes are the training grounds. Do we train our children? Do we train
Yeah.
each other as partners to be able to do that outside? This
Yeah,
is
and yeah, no, you're right. And I think you had asked me about, the father-daughter relationship or the father-son relationship. It's
Yeah,
these training grounds, as you see, that will set her and him up for future relationships.
exactly.
How is a romantic relationship communication model? And it's a template, or
Yeah.
you're giving them a template, maybe not the right template, or maybe it is, I don't know.
But you're giving them a foundation to
Yeah, a
create their own
foundation.
framework, as you're saying, for them
It's
to
fair.
pivot from there and to build
Hmm.
or create or to, tear down and recreate if they want to, or rewrite however they see fit. But you give them something to work from. It's just like going to school and then walking out with a degree but not knowing anything. What's the point? We go into the school of life at home and we don't get the schools sorry the schooling that we need, the training that we need in order to face our life thereafter. Then what?
Yeah, then what? Then, I mean, either, then you have to seek it out.
Yeah. Then life teaches us. And
Yeah.
those are painful lessons.
Thank you. Yes. It hurts a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's get on the bandwagon, as they say in the States, and really commit to investing in our families, to creating those training grounds in our homes. Healthy, safe, communicative, open, honest training grounds where they can really experience what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, what they're thinking in a way that is non-judgmental, so that they know that that's their safe space. Because once they
Well,
do that, the sky's the limit for them outside. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, well said. Yes, I love the analogy of training grounds. I mean, for me, particularly, that definitely resonates and something I'll definitely take away from this conversation.
And there's so much that we're going to take away from your conversation with us today, John. It's been a pleasure. Any parting thoughts, words, ideas, wisdoms that you'd like to share?
No, I truly just want to thank you for this opportunity. I think this is a
But
fabulous conversation. I look forward to continuing conversation at a later date. Hopefully, I definitely want to keep in touch with you. And I guess
absolutely.
my parting shot is again, it's a blessing to fail. There is opportunity and growth that comes from it. Keep pushing, keep stepping. It's gonna work out. It's gonna turn out. It's gonna be okay.
It always does. It always
Yes.
does when we believe, as you said beautifully
Yes.
earlier.
Yes. Have that belief in
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes, first and foremost, absolutely. And every man, every woman, every child deserves a life to live. So please choose life.
Amen.
Choose life. With
hmm
that said, I want to end with this really powerful quote that really impacted me. I've said it before on the Zoom calls, but I haven't said it in a while. And I think it really resonates right now for me. And let me know what you think. It's a slightly altered quote by Kate Northrup. And it says, "Let the amount you've moved your body this week be enough. Let the effort you put into the project, whatever that project may be enough. Let the amount of time you spend really, truly being with your kids be enough. Let the amount of love and intimacy you're having be enough. Let the love you have to give be enough. Let the love you have to receive and are willing to receive be enough. The world doesn't need you busy. The world doesn't need you in any other way but to be here, present, alive, and that is enough." Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Join us for our next episode on the Genuine Men's Chat show, podcast, and Zoom Live. Share, like, and follow the Genuine Men's Chat movement on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and join our Genuine Men's Chat Facebook group, where you can join other men in the discussion on this topic and many others. Our motto in 2020 is many men, many conversations. Have you taken your seat at the table yet? See you next time.